The following is meant for entertainment and educational purposes. It is not meant to establish a doctor-patient relationship. Please consult your mental health provider for your mental health needs. Hello, welcome to Chez Eric, a place where we talk about psychiatry and religion with a focus on how to apply it to your life. This is my office, not my home this time. We're in a different place. I moved to New York City. I got myself a little office to do this filming and try to get my, psychiatry practice in order and whatnot. So we'll be doing things here for the time being. And I hope you enjoy it. It's a cleaner, I suppose. Before I had a lot of books in the background and made me look real smart. But here, I guess, not as smart. I'll have to bring it now. We'll be talking about William James's The Varieties of Religious Experience, talk about Saintliness, because this is a very, very long journey. And we're at the halfway point. So thank you very, very much. Thank you for journeying all this way. We're only halfway through though, but there's a lot more to go through, and it's really, really, really good. James talks about saintliness, and in his talk about saintliness, he kind of wants to examine and observe the people who are on a particular end of a spectrum, and the very, very edge of the spectrum where they're very almost bizarre looking. They're very, very extreme in their views, in their desire to be one with God, and they have very, very extreme religious experiences as a result of it. James points out that the fruits of humanity, the great things about humanity when it comes to religious experiences, are things that we really cherish, like bravery and patience and trust and kindness, things like that. And that is the fruit that one would achieve or receive when they reach this level of saintliness. And therefore, William James wishes to explore this concept of these fruits as a result of saintliness, to truly understand the religious experience. Before James goes into saintliness itself, James wants to talk about what makes people different. Why are some people getting more fruits, some other people getting less fruits? Why are some people have different temperament and other people have, more excitable temperaments? And James says that there are two major reasons or categories of why people are different. And the first category is the idea that people have different impulses and inhibitions. So in the psychological framework, people have impulses, desires to do something, and then they have inhibitions. For Freud, it was going to be impulses from the id, the desire to get things done, and then inhibitions from the superego, where society says, no, you shouldn't do that. So if you really want to eat something, and then you really want to eat it, but then society says, no, you have to pay for that burger you want to eat, then there are these constantly moving impulses and inhibitions, and everybody's going to have a different level of impulses and a different level of inhibitions. And when the inhibitions are so continuous, it becomes a part of the subconscious, and that's where we try to explore subconscious inhibitions on why people do what they do, why people believe what they believe. The second major category is this idea of emotional excitement. Some people can become very emotionally excited about things, and other people can be less emotionally excited about things. And William James recognizes that emotional excitability is something that isn't exactly concrete, but it can be sort of a mixed state. But ultimately, someone can have these mix of emotions, and that also makes people different. Some people have different mixes of emotions versus other mixes of emotions. And in particular, he recognizes the relationship between this excitability and pulling away inhibitions. So anger was an example he provided. He says that when people become very, very angry, that emotion of anger pulls away the inhibitions one would have, and then they may act on the impulse to yell, shout, scream, maybe even hurt someone else. So that is how there's a relationship between the inhibitions and impulses, and then emotional excitability. That emotions has the ability to completely wipe away your inhibitions and then get you to do the things that you have impulses for. And then the next step he talks about is to point out that the differences between people that we've talked about so far have only really been temporary changes in emotions, right? However, fixed differences between people certainly exist. And that is kind of the difference between someone, let's say, being wanting to do something and then willing to do something. And that when we're talking about a continuous change, a long-lasting difference, a change in somebody, we're talking about kind of he describes it as a steam pressure chronically driving the character. There's just something different there. And when we're talking about this non-temporary change in people, we can look at the religious state, right? And what we find is that a person who's in a different or a higher religious state will be different from what they were before. And that there's a new passion, there's a new thing that gets them excited. And that thing that gets them excited creates these fruits like generosity, when previously they just weren't available for her. So a good example is Scrooge. I think Scrooge is a famous enough example with Christmas Carol. There's this guy that's a curmudgeon, and he makes his worker work on Christmas, and he's very angry, and then he gets seen by 3 ghosts, past, present, and future, and then he all of a sudden becomes generous and happy and joyful, and those are the fruits of a renewed spirit, a renewed religious sort of way of understanding the world and moving forward with that. And so he recognizes that when we're talking about a religious change, like a conversion, what we talked about last lecture, we're talking about something permanent, and it's related to these ideas of inhibitions and excitements. And when these fruits are created, well, we can then analyze them and understand them deeper. So this state of being more religious or having these fruits available, he calls this state saintliness, that you have a saintly attitude towards things. And so he says that saintliness is where the spiritual and habitual centers, the things that you care about, that religion is the center of your energy. That's what he's describing it as. And when we observe the saints, we find that there are similarities between all of them. And he lists out 4 major things. The first thing is that there's a feeling that these people who are saints, they feel like there's a wider life, that there's something bigger than themselves, right? And that they don't really care about the world's anymore. They don't care about the selfish interests of the world, right? They're not looking for money or fame or anything. They're just, realize this bigger thing, this essence. It's not an intellectual thing. It's not I deducted something. It's that they have a conviction now, and it's that it's related to this ideal power, and they want to be close to this ideal power, and the rest of the world just begins to melt away. And then the second thing is that there's this continuity with this ideal power. What does that mean? Well, it means that you become connected to this ideal power such that it's a continuous flow from the ideal power to you, right, with your own life. And that your willingness to self-surrender to this ideal power, surrender yourself to its control, then makes up who you are and what you do. Okay, so that's the second thing. And the third thing is that suddenly the similar characteristics between saints is that there is an immense, he says, elation and freedom, that there's a lot of freedom, right? Once the outlines of confining yourself melt away, and you just allow yourself just to be free to be who you are as related to this divine being. And finally, there's a shifting of your emotional center, right, towards a loving and harmonious affection, that you are able to love other people more. Instead of saying no, you say yes. So say Mother Teresa, for example, is very loving, and she's more willing to say, yes, I can find a way to find you food, I can love you, I can show you love overall. So that is the concept of saintliness. And so when it comes to what he was talking about before, it seems like the emotional center. Well, when anger can eliminate your inhibitions, your inhibitions to drive those impulses, the religious emotions have a tendency to melt away the inhibitions to drive the impulses that are good, that are things that we value. Again, like bravery and generosity and stuff like that. And so that's the framework in which William James talks about saintliness. And in talking about saintliness, he then goes and talks about individual fruits that he's identified within saintliness. And he goes into detail about all of them. So we'll talk about the different fruits next time, and then the next couple of parts will be about going to the individual fruits that James talks about. I hope you enjoyed that. Something, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Bye. Hey, sign up for my weekly newsletter. I send out emails every week on psychiatry and religion. I realize that email is a great way to go deep into these topics. So if you want more content, check out chesericpurell.com and subscribe over there. Thanks.